price when that happens, so people at least will have a standard when they go in with their silver to have it weighed?
Well, that's a good question. At the time that things start settling out, then we'll know the answer to that. I can't predict the future, and I have no idea what the intent and purpose of certain things are going to be. I would imagine that they're going to try to make it fair to everybody, so nobody gets messed up in the process. But as I said, these things are being worked on, so they're not set in stone. And then the people have to be in a position to approve what they're doing. This is a part of the system of government we've had since the founders. That's what I would look to. The legal currency being gold and silver. To me, silver is less expensive than gold. It's a little more readily available generally. So more people could afford to have some. You're looking at maybe a 2-week span, give or take, from what I understand and what I've been told and what's been explained to me. And I have been asked by people that are principals in doing this to give this information to the people so that they can prepare and be ready and have some ideas to what's coming. Now, there's a lot more goes into it, but that should answer that question.
Great, Drake. Hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. I just want to clarify those points because I think, so people should have some cash just in case. Just in case that you get a lack of cooperation from non-believers. Anyway, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, I'm going to stop and take a couple of questions from the chat because these have been sitting here for a little bit. Drake, what happened to the credit versus the debt system revaluation?
Credit versus debt. Credit and debt are both the same thing. What you're going to go to is an equity situation from a debt situation. You will have debt instruments. That's what paper currency is. It is a voucher for a certain value. Therefore, some of the currencies presently available may be still in use. This is something that's not fully decided yet, and until it is, I'm not going to make any suggestions one way or the other than I do know it's going from a debt situation, which is going to be taken care of, to an equity situation. Instead of having a negative value, you will have a positive value. And the difference should be, to me, from what I see, pretty extraordinary. So that should answer that.
Okay, I'm going to do one more from the chat, and then we'll go to the next caller. Are you privy to the $1.2 quadrillion dollars in derivatives owned by J.P. Morgan? Do they still have control, or is this gone?
Okay. Financial warfare is an interesting idea. This is where you take and use credit against somebody for a specific result. Credit default swaps and things of this nature are hybrid derivatives. That means it's some kind of 5 different kinds of stock rolled into one. That's some sort of insurance policy against something adverse happening. Credit default means that your company or business or country defaults on its debts, and supposedly this kicks in at a certain point. Each one of these things has its own little certain point it kicks in on. So, take a guess as to exactly what is going to happen. The reason I say that is that even the financial experts don't really know what a credit default swap is or how they actually work. I've asked a few of them, and they couldn't really explain it. So, to me, you got some kind of a thingy. Whether it's got any value or not is questionable. J.P. Morgan is in an interesting situation, as are a lot of other financial institutions. My suggestion is that you sit back and watch to see which way things go and which way the wind blows, and we'll watch it together. Okay?
Okay, sounds good. Our next caller is Dan from area code 702. Dan, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Sure can. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm here in Las Vegas, and just to celebrate some of the upcoming events, I know people sometimes walk into the casinos. Well, this might even be better than the slot machine noise. Let's see if we can do that worldwide. Anyways, my question is, what are your thoughts on the Vatican butler and Tony Blair heckler for Drake?
I think we're trying to get into politics, and I don't go there for one thing. Number two, I try to stay away from news that's not news. And to be quite honest, a heckler is a heckler. If you cannot answer that person, either in humor or in fact, then there may be a problem there somewhere. As far as getting into the rest of the political scene, I don't particularly like politics because I see the way they act in terms of people who call themselves politicians. And that's my answer to that.
All right. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Our next caller is Yvonne, and she's from area code 813. Yvonne, are you there?
I am. I'm here.
Go ahead, honey.
Hi. I really don't have a question to ask. I was just so moved by the story about that gentleman in California. And I heard that on the heels of being in the chat room and having to get out of there. And so there's just, I'll make it very brief because I don't know if I can keep it together here, but if it were not that I had a patriot cousin who spent 11 years in prison for helping people, along with his daughter who died in prison because of lack of medical care, I would not have any reality about what some of these people do and have done, the patriots and all of this. And I have a feeling that a lot of these people that make all these ridiculous comments on the chat and nitpick about somebody being gay or what Drake said and all of that, they don't have a clue. And I don't judge them because I know were it not for my experiences, I wouldn't either. But honestly, I think people need to just stop, say a little prayer, and realize that this is so big, it's so important. We haven't suffered yet, most of us, especially people making comments in the chat room. We really haven't suffered or we wouldn't be making those comments. And I really haven't suffered either, but I have family that has, and that's still paying for it. So I think that it would be good for people to, if they could, I can't make people do things. It just upsets me, and I so appreciate Drake and all of you because I know how hard you all work, and frankly, I get very, very upset when people do and say some of the things they say. And I know we can't control them, but I just had to say it, and I hope it's okay. And bless all of you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Our next caller is Denise from area code 228. Denise, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Hi, Denise. Go ahead.
Hi, Drake. I had a quick question on the financial end. As far as the money that we have, like residing in regular savings and loan banks and everything at this point, if it may still be valid currency, what is your best suggestion as to how to secure that now? Like, should we leave it in the bank? Should we move it into a private bank? Should we bring it home and put it in a safe under lock and key? What do we do with our current currencies?
From what I understand as to the way things are to come about, the dollars that are in existence, specifically with small people. Some of the larger people may take a little bit of a hit. I don't know that for sure, but I've heard rumors that that may be the case. If the bank or system where you have your currency is not directly affiliated with the central banking system, or has very minimal ties to it, those are the banks that are going to be reopened, and reopened as immediately as possible. The understanding I have is that this can go two ways. Either there will be a revaluation of our present currency from, they've got printing dates, the massive amounts of printing that has gone on in the last couple of years is not something that some foreign countries will accept. I would suggest they don't accept it here either. However, that's not up to me. The banks will be all closed for a period of time. Should be about a week, from what I can understand. The currency that you have should be revalued or replaced according to whatever system is worked out. My understanding is this is supposed to be a one-for-one if there is an exchange. My understanding to go further than that is that it's easier, less expensive, and a lot quicker to go ahead and revalue the currencies available. So if you have a small bank, small local bank, something that even if it's a chain bank, say there's 5, 6 of them, maybe 8 or 10, and it's not tied too heavily into the Federal Reserve, there should not be any problems. Those banks that are large.
Would a credit union be would a credit union be an answer there? Like transfer to a credit union?
You'd have to ask them how directly tied to the Federal Reserve they are. The more independent they are, the safer your money is. Just that simple. Now, that does not mean
that chain banks all say FDIC and, you know.
Well, FDIC is just deposit insurance, and my understanding is they've been running in the red. So it doesn't mean a whole lot.
Okay.
The thing you have to look at is whether or not your bank is directly tied to the Federal Reserve, and a minor tie doesn't mean a lot. If it's heavily involved with it, that can mean something. And
like
what you can do is you honestly go to your bank and ask. Do what?
I'm sorry, like if you're at Chase Bank or J.P. Morgan or something, Bank of America.
Those banks that receive bailouts are the ones I'd get away from. That'll give you a rule of thumb to follow.
That's good.
The ones that didn't really absolutely have to have that, but do a business with the Federal Reserve on an as-needs basis, are most probably safe. If you can find one, this is going to be a real trick. If you can find a bank that does no business at all with the Federal Reserve, you're in great shape. And that's basically how it works.
Okay. So pulling your money out and bringing it home and putting it in a safe is a not good idea then, basically.
Not necessarily, no. You don't have to go running around trying to figure that out. It's easier to simply go and ask your banker, how heavily are you tied into the Federal Reserve? If it's not, just an as needs basis, we need a little cash to see us through payday because the date of the due on bills did not fall at the right time, so that they got the ready cash available, and they get some cash from the Federal Reserve. That doesn't obligate them. Now, somebody like Bank of America, Chase, et cetera, who has been doing heavy business with the Federal Reserve, that's different. Those banks are going to have some problems. And this is why I suggest the smaller local banks, the ones who are less involved in that particular area, less heavily involved. And like I say, if you can find one that don't do any business with them at all, you got it.
Okay. As always, thank you so much, Drake.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to ask another question from the chat. What does Drake suggest for those of us who simply don't have the extra funds available to buy gold and silver coinage.